What you camera talking about? Okay, so this topic might be pretty good. How to rig your camera for solo shooting. So here's the main thing. One of the things that I've learned from doing event videography, stuff like that, is one of the things that might be most important is speed. Right? So people might think about all these different things like, oh, is it super stabilized? Is it this, that, and the other? Whatever kind of bells and whistles and different things that people might put on their camera or add to their rig or do whatever. Or like, look at this audio recorder that I have over here that I could turn on and it does 32-bit float, really good quality audio. All this stuff, or this lights, fancy lights, whatever. All these things. But at the end of the day, if the shot is happening and you cannot get any redos, can your setup quickly just work and capture the shot? And also, if you're working solo, like, it's you're it, right? So can your setup work easily and efficiently and quickly for you in the moment as you're going solo? Because there's not like a support team of other videographers to help you do stuff, whether it's capturing audio or lighting or whatever. Like, if it's just you and you're it, then does your setup work, and does it work well, and does it work fast, and does it get the job done as best as you can? These different things, right? So even like when it comes to like gimbals might be a thing that people talk a lot about that might seem really great, but at the end of the day, does the gimbal work for you in your setup? Like, it might give you a really smooth shot, but when it comes to accuracy and speed, is it actually like helping or is it hurting, right? So for example, like just let me paint a picture here for you. Okay, so you're doing event videography. Let's say that there's like, some people performing at a stage event or something like that, and you want to get like shots of the stage people, of the crowd, of different stuff. Maybe you want to interview people, all these different things. If you have your camera on a gimbal, as soon as you change a lens, you're already starting to encounter possible things that get in the way of the process. Because if your lens is slightly different weight or balance, or if it affects the balance of the camera on the gimbal, then you're going to have to rebalance it. And then I think once you kind of get it rebalanced, I don't know if you have to do an auto calibration or however that works, whatever the process is for rebalancing your gimbal, then you might have to do that again just because you changed a lens. And then when you change back to another lens, just maybe you have to do the process again now. So just think about that, right? Just the annoyance of doing that. And then there's another battery as well. So you're using the gimbal. The gimbal's got its own battery. Does it have a convenient battery setup? Or is it like mine where you have to unscrew the part and there's like these 3 giant, not AA batteries, but they have like that kind of form factor, but they're bigger. And they have to change those out, put new ones in to even have other batteries. Whereas with, I think, some of the, what's it called? The DJI, I think, Ronin gimbals. With some of those Ronin gimbal models, I think the handle is the battery and you could just swap it quickly. But is your gimbal like that, or is it more clunky to change the battery? Can it run off of an external power source? Maybe it can. I don't know a whole lot about different gimbals, but some gimbals, at least one maybe, can run off of your V-mount as well, so maybe it works out. But how much power is everything drawing collectively? Are you going to have to swap out batteries? Like, just think about the process. And even just when it comes to using a gimbal, when you're trying to do certain shots, depending on the settings or what your gimbal can do, it might not be as snappy as you need it to be if you're doing fast-paced stuff, because it's kind of got that fluid movement to it. So it might be kind of like an art just to use the gimbal well and accurately. So then, do you want to learn how to do that, or do you want to try to figure that out? Is it going to make it more difficult to just get the shot the way that you want it? Just think about these different things, right? Like, the more gear that you add to the setup might not necessarily make it easier and better. It might actually start to maybe get in the way, and maybe even make it worse, depending on if it makes you miss a shot or not. And depending on what you're doing, like, you miss the shot, you might not get a second chance. So the way I've kind of went more about it now, just to minimize a bit more on some of these things. I don't know if all of these things are the reason why I've done this, but probably at least one or two maybe more, maybe less, whatever. In terms of like the speed, the kind of, maybe you could say the accuracy of use, and also like having to not, mess around with the battery stuff, I just would opt for either doing like a handheld thing or a shoulder rig. In terms of just the ease of use and setup and speed and stuff like that, it just kind of, that's where I'm at with it right now. Sure, some shots might be a bit more shaky. You might not be able to get like smooth follow shots, but sometimes it might just be okay, depending on what you're doing, just to go with like the shoulder rig or the handheld kind of way of doing things. If you're just doing like fast-paced, you never know what's going to happen at an event kind of thing. So just think of it in that kind of way. You don't have to do this. This might just be kind of more where I'm at right now. And again, there's different ways to stabilize a shot if stabilization is something that you need or you care about. And beyond that, what was the topic? Okay, rig your camera for solo shooting. Okay. Just anything that makes your camera easy to handle. Whether it's even like, if you set your camera down, is it going to stay right side up or is it always tipping over? This is something that, depending on how this camera is set up, it might tip over. Is that a big deal? Or do you want to invest in something that will kind of give your camera like little feet to stand on, just so you put it down, it just stays put, stays there, stays stable, you don't have to worry too much about it? Is your camera too light? Is your camera too heavy? Do you want to add more, rigging to it, or do you want to have it more, simple? Do you record audio directly into your camera? If you're doing everything solo, you might want to go that route. Basically, as close as you can get to having to just turn it on and push one button, maybe the better. Because if you have to every time push like 2 or more buttons, and if you have multiple battery sources and you have to turn multiple things on, but maybe you have to turn some things off because you want to save on battery, depending on how it all works, like, just, does that sound like a good time? Where I'm at now is it's kind of like, just have the camera, have everything run off the V-mount, or at least as much as you can. The mic doesn't, because I think I probably could actually run this mic off the V-mount without getting kind of noise interference, but that might be a risk if you plug your mic in to charge it, if it has an internal battery or whatever, while you're using it. Does that cause the mic to sound more noisy due to however the technology with that works? I think it's an interference thing. But anyway, consider that. Or are you using like an XLR mic that's just going right into an XLR port in your camera, and then you don't have to worry about the battery of the mic, things like that? Are you using a wireless mic system? So just, it's kind of like, the more, you got to kind of choose. If you're doing solo stuff, like, easier might just be better, as long as it gets the quality that you're looking for, that the client wants. And just like the versatility of the rig, bigger is not necessarily always better, because, like, are you working in more small form factor spaces? Do you need to be able to have it really maneuverable, and so kind of a smaller rig? Or does it matter? Are you like outside at a big space, and it doesn't matter if you have a giant shoulder rig, but at the same time, how long do you have to carry it for? If it weighs 20 pounds, do you want to carry that for 8 hours? Or would you rather it weighed 5 pounds? It's worth considering. But the more weight, probably the smoother the shot's going to be. If it's not on a gimbal and you're just using it like on a shoulder rig, maybe it'll look a little bit more nice if it weighs like 20 pounds, right? So again, consider these things. What's your budget, right? If you're a solo filmmaker, do you have a tighter budget? And if you're building a rig for that, you might have to go without some things, or go for a cheaper version of something that maybe might not be as good, or maybe it's similar, in its quality of how it does stuff. Like, maybe you can't afford a gimbal, so maybe you got to go with a shoulder rig, but maybe you have to get a cheaper shoulder rig because some stuff might get expensive. Maybe you can't afford the wireless mic recorders, so maybe you just got to try to get a good shotgun mic, or get creative with how you work all that out. Am I making sense? So beyond that maybe kind of covers it, at least when it comes to more of the run and gun, quick, fast-paced stuff. Try to just keep it a bit more simple less is better sometimes, like when it comes to the amount of batteries. That's probably the case. Yeah, try not to make it too much to think about. If it has good autofocus, probably even better, because just the less things that you have to focus on other than like your framing of the shot. Like if you can make your camera rig simple enough where the main thing you just have to think about is pressing record and framing the shot, and or following the subject or doing whatever it is that you got to do for your job, the more closely you could get to just pressing record and doing your job, not having to think about all these other little things, probably, then this is going to be, you know, the camera rig is going to be better for the solo run and gun shooting, right? So, do you need an external monitor? Can you afford one? Might help with, especially if you're in like bright environments. Maybe your on-camera screen maybe isn't bright enough, or even for judging focus, if you're manually pulling focus, you might want an external monitor to help better analyze if things are in focus if you're manually focusing. Also, like your exposure, does your camera have false color, or are you going to have to get an external monitor that has false color in order to better judge your exposure? False color kind of shows the different levels of exposure as different colors, so it looks like this kind of weird colorful splotchy mess, but if you know what it means, it will help you to judge if the things are bright enough or dark enough that you want to look brighter or darker or whatever. So that's worth considering. Does any of that matter, or is it good enough just to use the built-in camera exposure tools, especially if you want to keep your rig more small? Like with this camera, there's zebras. Zebras is essentially that you'll see like these lines. Actually, there's some lines right here on my camera right now because the sky is pretty overexposed, and so it'll just show you, depending on how you have your zebras set, if you're clipping past that certain exposure point. I'm kind of making an assumption here in how I'm explaining zebras. I could be wrong. Feel free to look that up. You know what I mean? But anyway, different things. Does your camera have exposure tools that are good enough, or would you need to get more of a dedicated device? Things like that to consider. I might be rambling a bit now. I'm going to probably end that there. So yeah, maybe just try to think as simple as possible without sacrificing too much quality. Maybe that's a good way to think about it, because the less you have to think about while you're on the move, probably the better. So anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good day.